thank you for joining us. We're spending a few minutes with Judge Roy Moore today. And Judge, good morning to you. Thanks for being with us today.
Nice to be with you, Jimmy.
Tell us a little bit. I know that you're no stranger to most of our audience that are watching statewide today, but a little bit about yourself and you got a primary coming up in August and the election in December, so it's a busy time for you.
It is a very busy time, traveling around the state, traveling up and down the coast, from the coast to the northern part of the state. We've been very busy making speeches and appearing in forums and different venues, and I enjoy talking to people. When I first started in politics 25 years ago, I guess, I didn't enjoy it as much because I was always worried about how it would appear, but now you just talk about the issues and talk about what's going on in the state and national. And people want to know about health care, they want to know about immigration, they want to know about the military, about foreign policy, different things, and I enjoy talking about these things.
Why and when did you decide to run for the Senate seat of Senator Sessions?
Well, when Senator Sessions vacated, I thought about it, and I received a lot of support from the Republican people around the state. They had recommended to the governor that I be appointed, and the governor talked to me. He asked me to come up. I didn't go up without his invitation, and he talked to me, and then I considered qualifying.
You were twice elected Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court. Who is Judge Roy Moore?
Well, it's simple. I came from Etowah County as a judge. I was a prosecutor in Etowah County before that and an attorney. I graduated from the United States Military Academy at West Point. I went to the Army, served in Germany and then Vietnam, as a company commander in Vietnam, military police. So I was kind of interested in law out of West Point. Then I went to the University of Alabama School of Law and graduated in 1977, became the first full-time deputy district attorney in Etowah County. So after that, I prosecuted criminal law for 5 years, and then I went into private practice and did that for a while, and eventually in 1992, I was appointed by Governor Guy Hunt as a circuit judge in the 16th Judicial Circuit. I served there 8 years and ran as a candidate for the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Alabama, and was elected in 2000, and I served there for nearly 3 years. And after that, I was president of the Foundation for Moral Law for 9 years, and then again elected Chief Justice.
You're known as the Ten Commandments judge.
Well,
good, bad, or indifferent.
Putting the Ten Commandments in the courthouse, yes.
What are some of your core beliefs, Judge?
Well, I believe in the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the United States is something that every politician, if you will, every legislator, judicial officer, or executive officer, both of the United States and the federal government, are sworn to under Article 6. It's something that you find your sheriffs and all officials are sworn to the Constitution because it is the unique compact between the states and the federal government, which allows our form of government, which is a Republican form of government. Now, it's not to be confused with the party Republican. It means that's what is stated in the Constitution. Each state is provided, secured to have a Republican form of government.
Judge Roy Moore, our guest today, Vietnam veteran, and your beliefs are really demonstrated by who you are. Those beliefs that you have are shared by a lot of other people in this state and across this great country.
Well, I believe in God. I believe that God created us, that we're endowed by God, our Creator, with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That is stated in the Declaration. It is our charter of incorporation. It is why we exist as a nation. And it's not to allow some Supreme Court or Bill of Rights or whatever to give us rights. They secured the rights that God gave us. I've always believed in that. I believe that our form of government is governed by the powers organized in the Constitution of the United States. That it is a constitution that limits power rather than grants power between state and federal. There's a principle of federalism, which means the states have certain rights, and only those rights enumerated are given to the federal government, and that some rights belong to people without any state or federal regulation. I believe in America. I believe the people of America are great. I believe the people of Alabama are better than any people or as good as any people in our country. I'm proud of my state, whose motto is "We dare defend our rights." So I was born here in Alabama in Etowah County, went to Etowah High School, and from there in 1965 went to the United States Military Academy. I've always, as a child, lived on a farm. I worked on a farm and was raised in a rural environment, and I became more military oriented when I went to West Point, of course, and I had to serve in the military. But I had a love for law out of the academy, and that's what translated into my law degree and my service in the judicial branch.
You have not been a judge, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Alabama without controversy.
No, I think you're going to have controversy. You got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. It's an old country song. I've stood on my principles. I've upheld my oath to the Constitution. I don't apologize for it because that's what I did. I did it legally and appropriately. I could get into either case with the Ten Commandments, which wasn't about the Ten Commandments at all. I was asked if I would continue to acknowledge God if I held my job by the prosecutor. The prosecutor asked me that. I said I would. I would continue, and that I acknowledge God, and I would do it again, and I always have. I can't hold a position without acknowledging the sovereignty of God, and I'm still that way today.
The sanctity of marriage.
Sanctity of marriage. Where does marriage come from? It was defined by the United States Supreme Court. It's coming between the union of one man and one woman in the holiest state of matrimony. That's according to the United States Supreme Court opinion. I believe that. I believe it's historically, logically, and legally there. I think in Obergefell, the United States Supreme Court opinion on June 26, 2015, was a complete aberration of law. It was nothing in the Constitution, had nothing to do with it. In other words, the United States Constitution, which I value highly, had nothing to do with their opinion. They're supposed to be bound to the United States. That's their oath. By the way, that's just not my opinion. That's the opinion of Chief Justice John Roberts, who said the Constitution had nothing to do with this decision. It was echoed by Justice Scalia, Antonin Scalia, Clarence Thomas, and Justice Samuel Alito.
We were all shocked last week at the attack on our leadership in Maryland as they were practicing for a baseball game. Republicans against the Democrats have been playing this game for years, and national security. I mean, I know that's something that a lot of people are talking about today, not only in our state, not only in our country, but around the world.
Right. I think that we have seen in all these things, whether it's cars running over people in Louisiana or people being killed in malls or in nightclubs in Atlanta or on the streets of Washington, D.C., or at some baseball game, are a sign that our national morality has dissipated greatly. And we need to bring that back. We need to bring back a national morality among our people, because all these things have the same element. It's just a division that's been caused between black and white, between female and male, between Republican and Democrat. It's a division that's fostered by some of the prior administration policies of separation.
How do we fix this?
Well, I think we fix it by returning, and that's one of the things I've said in this campaign. I'm all for President Trump and his agenda to make America great again. I believe we can. I believe we will. But before we can make America great, we've got to make America good. And how do you make America good? You return to the acknowledgement of the foundation of morality, which is in God. That is constitutional, that is according to our organic law. And when we do that, we learn that as created beings, we have a duty to each other as well as a duty to God. And that duty cannot be interfered with by government. Government can't tell you to worship God, can't make you do it. It shouldn't. That has an individual choice. And likewise, we have laws based on the moral relationship between individuals. And we've got to recognize those moral relationships and return to an understanding that we're created in the image of God equally. And that we have a duty to our fellow man to preserve his life, not to take it, and to not tell untruths, but to tell the truth. Don't covet your neighbor's goods, earn your own way. Love your wife. Don't commit adultery. Honor your father and mother. These things are duties we owe to each other, and that constitutes our virtue or morality. George Washington said, "'Tis virtue or morality which is the necessary spring of popular government. Who that is a sincere friend to it can look with indifference on attempts to shake the foundation of the fabric?" In America today, our foundation has been shaken, and we need to return.
Judge Roy Moore, our guest for a minute or two more. What can people expect in the coming months of the campaign?
Well, I think they expect to see me in places where I go. I'm traveling up and down. You can't be everywhere. You can do events. Last night I was in Huntsville. Tonight I'll be in Anniston. Tomorrow night I'll be in Montgomery. The next night I'll be in Robertsdale, down in South Alabama and in Gulf Shores. I'll return. I go to Arab, Alabama in the weekend. So I'm traveling around. I was in Double Springs last week, Hueytown, in Birmingham, and in Birmingham at a breakfast. So I'm traveling all around. I'm going as much as I can go without letting it deplete my energy.
President Trump talked about when he was campaigning and what one of his desires was, and that's to drain the swamp. We hear a lot of talk about that. You're kind of sold on that.
Well, not only, I think the better illustration than a swamp is a quicksand, because that's what happens when you go. Mm-hmm. When you go to Washington, like many other places, you're sucked into a system that needs to be corrected. And you get engulfed in that system because you want to stay there, and it just sucks you into it, and you give up your ideals, give up your principles. I don't plan on being sucked into a quicksand. As far as draining the swamp, the people there sometimes have been sucked in, and perhaps we should change them. Perhaps we should have term limits. I'm all for term limits. I don't think anything's going to pass through either house of the Congress that's going to give an opportunity to vote on that, because it's just not a popular idea in a place, political institutions, where people want to stay. But we do have a way to correct that, by the way. It's called Article 5 of the United States Constitution, an amendment to the Constitution fostered by the states. That would be a change, and we could have term limits. We could have a balanced budget. We could have a lot of improvement, and maybe we return to marriages between a man and woman like it always has been, and it should be.
We, most Alabamians, we don't know a whole lot about the Constitution. We're working and providing for our families, but you talk about something that's very important to not just today, but our future.
Well, I think, every candidate, every elected official, state and federal, are sworn to that document. And without an understanding of it, without an understanding of separation of powers, we don't know what we're supposed to do. In Washington's word, it is important likewise that the habits of thinking in a free country should inspire caution in those entrusted with its administration to confine themselves within respective constitutional spheres, avoiding in the exercise of the powers of one department to encroach upon another. This period of encroachment tends to consolidate the powers of all the departments into one, and thus to create, whatever the form of government, a real despotism. He said this then: a just estimate of that love of power and the proneness to abuse it which predominates in the human heart is sufficient to satisfy us of the truth of this position. He said that in 1796. In 1796, in 1800s, in the 1900s, in the 2000s, that love of power still predominates in human heart. And it's something we need to curb. We don't need to look at how much power we can get. We need how much power we can restrain. And that's the basis of the Constitution. We have courts making laws. We have executives making laws. They're not supposed to make laws. That's the United States Congress that makes laws. We have regulatory organizations making laws without knowledge or proper oversight, I should say, of the Congress. We need to return to the functions of the courts, its interpretation of laws, the executive as executing those laws, and the Congress making those laws.
Finally, is there hope for America?
Yes, I think there's a lot of hope for America. I think that's, we live in a time where perhaps more than in the last 100 years, there's hope for change. And I think President Donald Trump illustrates that people of this country want a change. And what we're seeing in Washington is people that are trying to halter that and to avoid that stimulus that the people wanted. And I think that we will overcome that. I think there will be a change in our country. I think that we'll see new ideas coming forth. And I think there's a new vibrancy in the people in our country to see our things change in this country. They're tired of people just flowing across our borders without any oversight. I mean, that doesn't happen in any other country. We're tired of the government trying to run our healthcare system, and it's messing it up. It's not doing better. That's typical government. Ronald Reagan said that, you know, if you forget that free enterprise is the basis of our country, then you'll suffer these things accordingly. I think he said the 9 most fearful words in our English language is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. And it just doesn't work out that way.
Finally, these topics and more you talk about, how can people find out more about your campaign?
You can go to JudgeRoyMooreForSenate.com and you can find out my position on national issues. You can find out where I came from, what I've been about. JudgeRoyMooreForSenate.com. You can find out how to contribute to my campaign, which we need that greatly. We're overmatched, as usual, by heavy outside influences from Washington. And that's one thing in this campaign. We're seeing Washington, D.C. wanting to keep the swamp filled and with who they want. They don't want necessarily an outsider who will rule according to the Constitution and according to the laws. I think the people in Alabama are wonderful people. And I think they have a choice to see somebody in Washington that will stand up for our rights and our liberties and the right of the states not to be controlled by an overburdensome federal bureaucracy. And that's what we're facing today. We need to go back to the 10th Amendment, find out what it says. The power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by the states, or reserved to the states respectively, or the people. We're seeing a federal government that is violating that principle left and right.
Judge Roy Moore, our guest. Judge, thanks for being with us today.
Well, thank you very much, Jim Dale.
More Daybreak coming up.